I need help, boss.
Stands up and says it louder. He goes, I have a really big penis.
We're the NSAA. We're never serious about anything except grip ball.
I have drifted an aircraft carrier.
What?
To an extent, but you'll be out there alone as fuck. There's no.
Just bumping into people by osmosis of dopeness, you know?
3,
Okay.
2, 1. We're gone.
Welcome, everybody, to the Happy Hoodlums podcast. It's your host, Kemper Woodruff, a.k.a. the Happy Hoodlum himself. And we got Zack Sampson, a.k.a. Zachary Hoodlum in this bitch, all right?
You already know.
So, also, it is a little different and a little hard to see me. Just having some problems with my eyes today, so trying to do what I can, keep everything rolling. But
looks good, dude. You look fine.
We got a couple things that I want to start with. Shit, I don't know where my phone went. So, Tolstoy coming next week. But for right now, I'm reading a book by Dr. Wayne Dyer called Your Sacred Self, Old School. If you've never heard of Wayne Dyer, he is one of the best teachers and self-help writers ever. Come on, Bubba. Come on. Get up there. I'll get you up there in a second then. Okay. So, he wrote a couple things, and he was talking about, shedding blame and kind of ways to transcend yourself by taking these old beliefs that were taught very young and kind of eliminating them from our lives. So he says, shed the fault-finding tendency. Know that you are the creator of your life and that a loving presence is with you. Your ability to be self-reliant will overtake your habit of assigning blame. All right? And I'm kind of jumping around to a couple different parts before I get into what I was going to talk about. And so he says, blaming your surroundings is a futile exercise because wherever you go, you are still there. You must cultivate the inner knowing that everything in your life has been divinely designed by your collaboration with your highest self. And then in the next one, he's talking about how there's a belief that, or disbelief rather, that idealism can't coexist with realism, right? So he's talking about creating your reality, right? And there's a guy named William Blake, and he wrote this statement that says, if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear as it is, infinite. And Wayne says, can you imagine your reality in that way? Everything infinite. When your perception is expanded, nothing is real and nothing is imagined. All there is perception. When you cultivate this awareness, your reality is no longer defined by the physical world. At the tiniest quantum level, time is not a reality. Particles can be in more than one place at the same time, and they appear and disappear according to how we observe them and what measuring devices we use. All of this constitutes a new reality. Always remember, we are made of the same energy. And so he just goes on to elaborate on that a little bit more, but I've been talking a lot about synchronicity on here with you, and I'm starting to look at service as well, because I heard a sermon by T.D. Jakes, and he was saying the whole concept, it's called serving is not subservient, right? And so when you're serving your highest purpose, which is your divine calling, right? You're actually not only serving God, and there's only one, you know, no matter what your idea is that leads you to that, there's one, right? Source of energy. And so when you choose to serve that, right, you're actually serving yourself because you're fulfilling the reason why you wanted to come into this life. And it takes me back to an analogy that I was talking about, and it's just stuck with me. And it's that an apple seed is an apple even when it's a seed. So although you can't eat it while it's a seed, or at least it won't taste like the apple, nurturing it will only bring forth an apple, not a pumpkin, not any other kind of thing. And so when you look at your soul and your intention for why you came into this body to live in this time and space, I guess, although I don't really think that's on a spiritual level, but we're not going to get into that because that's all quantum shit. But why you came into this reality as you with this intention to fulfill your life, you know, and that when you take away this need to contextualize your reality of who you are now by using your past of who you've been, or these things that you may have spent your whole life hanging your hat on that you want to become, right? And you observe your essence, which is like the seed, right? And you align with your essence and serve that and decide, I don't care how, like what I got to go through. If I feel inside of myself I'm meant to be a singer, then I'm going to be a singer, you know? And I'm going to go down this route of learning music and this, that, and the other, right?
Yeah.
And TD Jakes in this sermon said something that kind of stood out to me, because a lot of people go, well, what the fuck is my purpose? What is my essence? Especially if you haven't learned how to like detach yourself, quiet your mind, and become an observer. And when I say observer, like observer of yourself, your tendencies, your habits on an emotional level, and what you're drawn to in life. That's much more literal, that point, what you're drawn to. But he said, if you want to know what you want to be, like what your purpose is, it's what you would be doing if you felt safe. Like if you felt encouraged, if you felt supported, if you felt that all things would go right and nothing would go wrong, excuse me. You know, if you had never heard someone say, hey, you can't sing, you're tone deaf, or this, that, and the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have the right look, whatever it may have been. If that had never been said, what would you do? You know, and sometimes it's like people know it and have just stuffed it in a box. And other times it's like what you're meant to do, your essence, it's like it's so under your nose, it's so you that it's hard for you to recognize it because it's normal to you. You can't even imagine living without it, you know? I have a friend of mine who's really into martial arts, and I was telling him, like, bro, you don't need a full dojo and 100 people off the rip, you know?
Yeah.
If you find one person that you fuck with, you know, that will give you a shot, you know, and just say, hey, dude, look, I know this move. It might be a takedown. It might be how to throw a cross, or, you know, a combination or a kick or something like that. And he's like, I told him, if you approach that one person, just the first person, and just say, hey, dude, it could be a coworker. If you come back to my crib after work 2 days this week, right? Give me 2 or 3 days, couple hours each night. By the end of the week, if you know this fucking move and you feel that I really taught you something substantial, I want you to give me $100. If not, you can keep the money, right? You don't need a dojo for that. You don't even need a garage to do that. You can do that in the yard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's like the concept is being so down for your cause and starting wherever you can that it's like at a certain point, sales is no longer this like disgusting thing. And shout out to Dean Graziosi for teaching me this through a Tony Robbins thing. If you truly value and believe in what you do, and you know the value of what it's added to your life, you start to see it as like, if I let you walk away from this, especially if I care about you, right? If I let you walk away and not learn this lesson, I'm doing you a disservice. You know?
Yeah.
And so that's the way that if someone's like, nah, man, I'm not doing that. When you're like, give me $100, I'll teach you it. That's when you come with that counteroffer. You're like, look, bro, I'll give you a money back guarantee. I believe in it that much. I know that it would help you.
I'm reading a book by Marcus Aurelius, and he basically talks about how people should live to their nature, and it's what you're most drawn to.
Mm-hmm.
And everything has its own nature. Each person has their own nature, and so it's hard to determine. Like when someone's living to their true nature, he talks about how, and like obviously there are bad people when it comes to like murderers and shit, but he talks about how it's like if someone's living to their nature, how is anything truly bad or good, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's when I say the word essence, you're using the word nature.
Yeah, basically.
But
It's a
but the
simpler
meaning
word
behind
for
it is this very similar, very much the same.
Yeah. And so this book is basically talking about that in a gist, I guess.
Yeah, Marcus, is it Meditations that you're reading?
Actually it is. And I actually have I have 2 paragraphs that I want to read out of it if I can find them again. Let me grab
Hell
it real
yeah, it
quick.
looks like we're going straight book study on this episode. Who'd have known? Yeah.
I read them today when I was working out, and I was like, I want to read those on the podcast because they were that impactful. Because usually, I'm like a not necessarily a speed reader, but I read kind of fast, and sometimes I don't pick up on everything.
You're an interesting dude, Zach, because you're extremely like Western philosophy in a lot of ways, but then in other ways, you're like so patient and systematic that you're almost like mad Zen.
What do you
You're
mean?
like Zen on crack.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? I don't know what that means.
Like, so Zen is like meditation, right? And so to do things in a Zen way is to focus on them one thing at a time to allow the nature or the essence of this activity or this experience to reveal the many layers of itself to you just by focusing on being there and being present and doing one thing, right? And so you are very present with a lot of ideas. But if you're like, yeah, I get it, you just fucking are like, all right, on to the next one. You're like, it'd be like if you did a fucking pre-workout and then went to go meditate, you know? You're like that.
I just took a super amount of caffeine and then just started trying to meditate. Okay. Interesting. I think this is the paragraph, the 2 paragraphs that I wanted to read. I think this is it. He who does not know what the world is does not know where he is. And he who does not know for what purpose the world exists does not know who he is, nor what the world is. But he who has failed in any one of these things could not even say for what purpose exists himself. What then do you think of him who seeks the praise of those who applaud, of men who know not either where they are or who they are?
Mm.
Do you wish to be praised by a man who curses himself every hour? Would you wish to please a man who does not please himself? Does a man please himself who repents or nearly... Hold on, let me read that again. Does a man please himself who repents of nearly everything that he does?
Mm.
And I was like, for me, it was the whole, why would you praise anyone who doesn't understand himself, or someone who has hatred for themselves and they're not being real, I guess.
Yeah, they're doing things they regret.
Yeah.
Because they're not true to who
Who
they
they
really
are,
are.
to their nature, to their essence, right?
Well, yeah, sorry, go on.
No, that was it.
Okay, I was going to say, my cousin John Thomas, shout out to JT. We talk about like religion a lot and philosophy and God and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I was talking to him because I had come across this topic of absolute knowing, right?
Okay.
And that when we become in alignment with the frequency of God, we can have absolute knowing from divine knowledge, and access to it, although not in the entirety, because our ability to focus and attune ourselves isn't so good that we can do that continually, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's why it's like Jesus is like the ascended master, right? Because that's God in a person to show that ability. Okay. Now, taking it kind of out of biblical context, right? But
Okay.
just talking about God as a whole, right? And absolute knowledge. I was talking to my cousin about knowing God or understanding God's ways because you don't always know what he's doing in your life, right?
Yeah.
And I was kind of combining knowing and God a lot. And he was like, I don't think that it's so much that we know God. It's that we know that he knows us. And we feel that as absolute knowing.
Okay.
It's like absolute assurance because we're just discovering ourselves as we're going through these experiences. And that's why I talk about being an observer, right? Because you're going to choose based on the nature of who you are in terms of how much of that you allow and how much of that you disallow, right? And when you disallow that, you wind up getting a spiritual atrophy in a sense, right? Because you're unwilling to accept the fullness of an experience and the ability to choose something that is displeasing to you. Unwilling to accept that it exists as something, right?
Yeah.
And so it's almost like that whole you can't look away from a train wreck or a car accident kind of deal, right? Because it has your attention because it's just so you're like, oh, that I so don't want that. It's so bad, right? But that's a choice. And so the more that you know of yourself, you just stop choosing those things and accept that that choice exists, but it's not the choice that you're willing to choose for yourself. And so you transcend to the next thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why some people can get hung up on one kind of experience and draw to themselves many different people that elicit either the same experience or the same feeling from this relationship, right? And yeah, it's just so interesting because I'm kind of losing my train of thought. And I apologize. It's just been a long day for me. But
It's all good, bro.
yeah, so my brain's a little tired. I don't know. Did that give you anything before I try and recover?
Um, I mean, I can tie it back into to meditations. It's just, um, Marcus Aurelius also talks about how things can affect your spirit, um, and your body and your mind. Like he talks about the three levels, those three things, and how each of these kind of beliefs affect each one. And if you're not true to your nature or your essence, how that affects your spirit and who you really are. Um, and he even goes to talk about how to kind of accept good and bad things, that go on in your life, and how you can kind of move past them. And he basically says how the way that you should look at bad things is kind of three different ways. If you can do something about it, why complain about it? In a very simple way. That's how he says it. And then he says, if you can't do anything about it, why complain about it? Because it's out of your control whether it's happening or not. Um, I forgot the third one, but that's kind of the idea. And then it kind of goes in the same way of good things is like, um, you shouldn't necessarily want like, I lost my train of thought now too.
I think you might be talking about like what I call um, what I've referred to. It's like a biblical term of good success. Like yes, you could prosper, but prospering at something that you weren't, that isn't of your nature and of your true essence or divine purpose that you came here to achieve. It's like, what's the point? You know.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of the development of the self, right, and the consciousness, like we have a hard time sometimes wrapping our heads around um, the fact that although we are here to experience our physicality, right, we aren't physical beings, right? We're a spirit inside of it. And I was listening to this awesome freaking KRS-One speech about the fifth dimension, right? And he holds up a sticker that says rock star, right? And he says, on the count of three, without saying these words out loud, I want you to say rock star, right? So he holds it up, everyone says it, and he goes, all right, I have a question for you. He goes, you just not only said something without ever moving your lips, right? Not only did you say something, you heard yourself say something. You heard a voice say it. So what is sound? It's a frequency, right? It exists in a dimension that isn't necessarily physical,
Yeah.
right? Although we're here in these bodies to have a physical experience. And so when you look at consciousness and what this physical body and like the chakra system and stuff affords us, is we came here to have the five sense kind of experience, but also we're a non-physical being with the sixth sense, which is our emotional sense that's tethered to our thoughts, right? So we have a thought, we have an inherent response to it with emotion that gives us feedback of our spiritual agreement with that perspective and the frequency of that kind of comes through in a texture that we would describe as emotion or feeling. I'm happy. It ranges from positive stuff up to euphoria, bliss, all this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
down to like helplessness, anger, despair, right? And so when you're having those negative emotions, it's this thought that you're choosing to harbor that is not in harmony with what you truly want for yourself, um, in response to your spirit holding the place of everything that you do want that is in alignment with your divine purpose, right? And so when you don't harmonize with that, you're feeling you tearing yourself apart. Um, and so there's things that we're drawn to lead us to this higher purpose, right? But if we're unwilling to go there, then sometimes the easiest way to be led there is to go to what you don't want. And once you're led to what you don't want, you go, I know I don't want this shit. I want that. Right? And then it affords you the ability to pivot towards it, right? But some people never make that pivot. They just keep being led to something they don't want. And because all energy, especially when you focus on it, it gains momentum, it gains speed, it gains power, just like a fucking snowball rolling downhill and turning into a bigger snowball in cartoons, right? Um, and so you're just led to, all right, this one wasn't bad enough for you. Now try this one. This one's worse and worse. And some people get caught up in thinking that's their purpose, that this is a miserable place and they can't navigate it in this life, in this body. And so they try again, try again, try again, right? And if you're unwilling, like, because one of the things I was thinking about was in Western society, in comparative experience, where a lot of things are performance based and driven, right? We're using the wrong metrics for success when we're comparing ourselves to other people because we don't know what they're feeling or why they actually came, right? What their purpose was.
Yeah.
And so when you keep your nose out of that and you just begin to observe yourself, you might find, like I know in looking at myself, I became so heady about things. I was always trying to use my brain to figure out things that were emotional, or even the physical. I say this a lot in terms of if you don't exercise and stuff, and you wind up watching a lot of porn,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna wind up inherently drawing into your brain your chi and your attention, and you're dissociating from this physical experience to the point where once you're actually in one of those intimate experiences, you're not able to actually fully be there and be present because now you're going back here and using this for something that your body is meant for, right? And when you're constantly breathing, you're sending your chi into that chakra or energetic center and overstimulating it and further atrophying your spirit, um, or your ability for your spirit to experience this in a physical nature, right? In a full five sensory experience, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so I noticed with myself, I was like, being headstrong and having like a motto can get you through something, but you still never truly get through it. Even though that moment may end, that trauma or whatever may stick with you. That moment lives on until you're willing to look at that thought, that concept, that experience that you shoved up here and tried to lock it in this box because it was too much to allow here. It was too overwhelming, right? It was too much to allow down in your privates. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like, and there's very real things where people can talk about trauma and dissociation of not only the body, or say like porn and the way that it affects your mind, and have actual scientific explanations of this. But it's very real, and we know it by the way that we feel. Like, it's easy to gloss over and be like, no, I don't want to look at that, and try and distract yourself. But, I've been calling a lot of the people that I love and just telling them, like, how beautiful they are,
Yeah.
you know? And really trying to spread this message of, when you need happiness, when you need anything, don't look outside yourself for it. Look at you. When you look at you and you get happy, when you need abundance and you look inside yourself and realize you have unlimited thoughts, unlimited energy, you're infinite in here. I don't need to look to get another car, get another this, get another that, because it'll never fulfill in here.
Yeah.
But once I turn that whole system around, and you start catching yourself as you're going through the day, like, you might be trying to ride this wave and keep that euphoria and bliss kind of building, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you start daydreaming and you're like, oh yeah, it's like the daydream hits you at first and it's really natural. And you're just like, man, that would be so cool. And then you start stacking all these external things, and it shifts from you daydreaming and resonating with this for the joyful feeling that it gets, to trying to get that joyful feeling by stacking more on the daydream that's physical. You see how that switches?
Yeah.
Where at first it's emotional and you're like, oh shit, and you're just like relishing the emotion, and this thing naturally kind of builds, to being like, no, I'm going to try and build this thing to make the emotion build. And it never works. Kills it.
Yeah, it's almost like the saying, like, money doesn't buy happiness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, I mean, you might have all the money in the world, and you might have thought that that's what would have made you happy, but that ultimately that's not what made you happy if you're not happy with yourself.
Recognizing yourself and the things that you buy is what makes you happy.
Yeah, bro, I was super fucking stoked when I bought like, these super nice fucking bed sheets that I bought. Those red ones that I usually have instead of these white ones, fucking phenomenal. And when I first bought my first set of like blankets and shit, like that matched and went together, I was like, man, this is awesome. I was hyped about it. I was happy. I was like, dude, this is dope. And when I painted my room, I was like, I fuck with this. I like it.
Straight up.
When I built my bed, when I did my dresser and the new TV stand that I just finished, I'm like, this is awesome shit. I'm happy about this.
Hell yeah.
And so,
And like,
yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned it on the podcast before, but I was running around with like my credit maxed out and $2 for the span of like 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And I realized, I was like, bro, I'm still happy.
Yeah.
Like, I still refuse to like not be happy. And there were times when I was like fucking frustrated and I was going through that natural kind of thing, but at a certain point, it like made something click, and I was like, oh. And so then I was like, yo, if I no longer look to my past, I let my past be done. If I'm not looking to my future, like, oh, I'll be happy when I get this.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I can't be happy because I had that, right? When you cut those two things out and you're able to be present, you can look inside of yourself and at yourself and go, yo, I want to feel better. And then you look to yourself and go, what about me? what can I create that makes me feel better? Rather than what can I buy, what can I do, this, that, and the other. No. Me as a creative force, as a creator, the creator of my experience, right?
Yeah.
This isn't an internal necessarily like narration. This is like stop the freak out. You know, you don't have to figure anything out because this comes back to that apple seed, right? You are what you are. That means even as the seed, you're already the apple. Even as someone singing in your shower, you're already, Mariah Carey.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And so as long as you take those necessary steps of nourishing yourself, the only thing that you will become, it's inevitable that you become that. And so that's why they say, see the end from the beginning, right?
I've never heard that saying personally.
What? Okay.
I've never heard it. No.
They say, and it's a biblical thing, so I understand that. They say,
Okay.
let let the weak say they're strong. Let the poor say they're rich. Because if you know in your heart, in your spirit, in your mind, what you're supposed to be, you can't believe against it
Yeah.
and feel good. That means you can only believe for it in order to be aligned with yourself. So when you nurture whatever makes you in your seed form feel the same way that this thought is going to make you feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because as you're nurturing yourself down here, you're feeling this reality. You walk around as Mariah Carey while you're still singing in the shower, and you become that. But you can't believe for something that you're not.
In meditations, Marcus Aurelius has a thing of like chastising people. And it's about the metaphor he uses is a fig tree.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, don't don't be angry at the fig tree if it doesn't produce figs, or if it does, because it's living within its nature, because sometimes it's not going to, and sometimes it will. I don't know how I connected that to what you were saying, but that's what popped into my head. And
Well,
yeah.
to me, what I would draw from that is like, if you look at the spirit, right? And if the spirit is not housed by like trapped in this body, right? The same way you can say something in your head and hear it without your body moving, right? No vocal cords move, no nothing.
You want to know something interesting about that though? Some people don't hear voices in their head. They see pictures instead.
Well, to me, that's not weird because it goes back to um, if sound is just frequency, right? That doesn't have anything to do with like a physical stimulus. It's a spiritual thing. It's an essence, right? So
okay, continue.
some people can interpret something because there's different dimensions, right? If you're someone who came to be a photographer, right? You came to navigate spectrums and the dimensions of light. Whereas other people that might have a sole intention to come here to be a musician, since we're on the topic of that, they're navigating this whole dimension of frequency of thought that resonates as sound. So some people may be auditory, some people may be visual. There's different ways. Some people might just be tactile. You can feel the thought
Yeah.
until you make sense of it. It's like you can feel it, you know? That's why your emotions are your sixth sense. Your emotions are different from a tactile feeling. You can close your eyes and you can feel the tactileness of a thought. Like if you think about, imagine hugging a Sasquatch, right?
Okay.
If you close your eyes and you imagine the feeling of a Sasquatch's hair, right? Now, not all Sasquatches are the same. Some people might feel it and it might be smooth, you know, whereas to me, it might be kind of nappy and a little coarse, you know?
Yeah.
You can feel it without your physical hands touching it.
I feel like that's mostly just like memory recall of just what you know of what that feeling is already.
Yeah, but
And you're kind of just reliving the memory of what that nappy feeling feels like from the last nappy thing that you felt.
all right, but I guess it's like, how do I say this? You can feel fluidity with never experiencing water.
We're 75% water.
All right, I guess you can put it that
Sorry,
way.
I'm shitting
But
on everything you're saying.
no,
My
no,
fault, bro.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's hard to find like the perfect analogy, especially when you're going through like the woo woo or the metaphor, you know?
Yeah. I feel you.
But the purpose is you just know it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
It's an extrasensory perception,
Yeah.
you know? If you only rely on your phone for communication, you disable your ability to be telepathic.
Yeah. Empathetic
You can
and
call
things like that.
someone through your spirit, because if you're looking at those like subatomic particles, right, on a quantum level, the same particle can exist in two places at once,
Okay.
right? So I could be at my house and fucking with your essence, your spirit in that fifth dimension, right? And basically tapping your fifth dimensional shoulder. It's not housed in your body. I don't tap your body. You don't feel it physically.
Yeah.
But something in your head goes, Kemper. And then I fucking call you or you call me and I go, oh, I was just thinking about you.
I've had those moments.
Right? Everybody has. But if you only believe that your cell phone is the only means that you can call somebody, right? You have these in these rare instances, whereas if you believe you can influence this reality in a different way, because reality is perceptual.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I don't know if there was ever a time where we were so unhindered and connected that we were able to do that telepathic stuff. Like honestly, I haven't. Not that I don't have a desire to like look into that, because that's just kind of intriguing to me.
Yeah.
But I think to a certain point, it's like we are that now. We really are that now. And we can go around all we want trying to explain some shit, but it's kind of like Andy Warhol saying, just make art. And while other people are judging it, make more art.
Yeah. They're
You know
sitting
what
there
I'm
trying
saying?
to figure out what the meaning of it is, and you're still just doing cool shit. Like they're stuck in the same spot. Like, oh, what does this mean? It's
So
like, guys, I
it
just made a
becomes
painting.
just do you.
Yeah.
just nourish your seed, your essence, right? The essence that you resonate with, and it will be explained by who you are, what you become, because you're already it right now. Seeing the end from the beginning. You've already determined that you are that. And it will be, because guess what? I'm not going to act in any other way than to carry this feeling of that right now. And so I might not be performing at like, what is it, the Emmys or some kind of shit, whatever
the
it is.
Oscars, the Grammys, whatever award
Yeah, the
show.
Grammys, right? I might not be at the fucking Grammys right now. I might be stapling a fucking flyer to a telephone pole.
Yeah.
But if me stapling this shit to the pole makes me feel that I'm doing what it takes for me to be that, for me to live this success, I will be that if I just don't stop and I nourish it.
It's like a person who wants to be a boxer being a janitor at a gym, or a person who wants to be a comedian being a server at a comedy club.
But dig, that's something they do, but not what they are.
Okay, so what's the difference between you stapling the poster and them working at a comedy club to become a singer or to become the comedian?
Well, these are two different things, right? Because I could be stapling this to a poster and still have a day job, right?
Yeah.
But the day job is what I do, not what I am. It's not my seed. My seed is not a janitor. I didn't grow into my fullness to be a janitor. Not degrading that, because
no. Like, I'm not saying like the janitor spot is their only way to do it, or like is like their end all be all, but like that's their way to get to where they want to be. Like you stapling your poster is a step for you to get to being your end all be all.
it could be, but it's different in the feeling about the craft, right? So nothing about doing janitorial duties, right, makes me feel that I'm a singer. It's not me honing, it's not me learning to read music, learning things about performing, right? It may be something that I do that helps me to achieve that.
But
it
how
may
does
fund
the
the other
poster?
things that I do to get to that space where I'm on a stage. It may buy me the lessons, and so it's a part of my journey, right? But it's something I do. It's never what I am.
But how is hanging up the poster different than that? Because you're also you're doing something by hanging up the poster. That's not who you are. You don't hang posters for a living. You're not stapling posters up on a...
I get it, but what I'm talking about is the essence of it, right? So if you maintain that, well, you're saying if you maintain that essence as you're a janitor, it doesn't matter the fact that you're doing those.
No, you're becoming
duties.
a janitor at a boxing gym to become a boxer.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Then you're working
I thought you just meant a janitor fucking where.
And then you become a server at a comedy club so that you can become a comedian. Yeah. So those were the two examples that I had used. That's why I was so fucking confused. I was like, wait a second.
Nah, that's just me fucking up.
Okay. All right. I was like, fuck, dude, where are we going wrong here? I don't know how to understand this shit.
No, that was just for us to fucking melt the minds of viewers, and they're like, I'm fucking enough. These fucking idiots. Doesn't matter.
Hey, no, these conversations are good. We all have, like, you got to work through it until you're on the same page.
Well, yeah, but see, this is what I'm talking about. fuck the same page.
Yeah, but
That's why this is a perfect example.
I feel like if you can't be on the same page with somebody, then how the fuck are you gonna achieve a goal that you're supposed to have the same goal at? Like if you and I were supposedly had the same goal for Happy Hoodlums, but in the end we both had different visions for it, and we're not on the same fucking page, neither of us are gonna be like 100% happy with where the fuck it's going.
I don't know. See, this comes back to like, if I never told you it, right? If we came up and we had this collaboration, and all I care about is the fact that I feel that I'm doing my part, right?
Yeah.
And that this is just an integral vehicle of me fulfilling my essence, right? This is just the way that I'm watering that. This is the water to the seed, right?
Mm.
Then in a sense, I don't know how far this is going to take me. I don't know how far our journeys go side by side, right? All of that is irrelevant to the fact that I know that whether it's you or someone else or this company or the next company, I will be there because I'm already there. This is just my process of getting there. And that's why I say it becomes the observing, because you're not doing as much as you think, right? What you want to do is already done because you are the essence of it. It's already complete.
Yeah, but fuck that. I want to be on the same page. That's dope and everything, but I want to know that you and I have the same goals.
I'm just saying that's human frailty, right? This
Fuck
is a bad
that's
example
That's not
to
frail.
use for this. That is, in a sense,
Nah.
that's you looking at my plate of food rather than just eating yours and being happy that we're eating together. I'm happy
That's
that
like
what you
me
eat
eating on
makes you
a
happy.
table that's 12 feet tall and you're eating on a table that's on the fucking floor. It's like we're not
But
eating at the same table.
I don't know. But this is the thing. Everybody has like collectiveness and individuality. That's kind of the duality of life, right?
Okay.
It's this whole paradox, right? So you can't tell if I feel like I'm at the same table or not. Like I could be sitting on the floor and feel like I'm 12 feet tall on this table.
Yeah, but I can try to make sure that we both feel like we're at the same table.
But what I'm
Because you're
saying is
my
you don't
partner.
have to.
You're my boy. I don't care. I don't care if I have to. I care about you. That's why I want to be
know.
on the same page. I want us to be on at the same table, sitting next to each other, fucking with each other's plate of food. Like I want to be like, fuck you, and push your food away from you. I don't want to
But-
be at each end of the fucking table and be like, yo, your food good? Yeah.
Yo,
Like-
that's sweet, but it's mad possessive. You know what I'm
Nah,
saying?
bro.
Like,
Because you're my boy, dude. I want to look. The same way you sat next to your best friend on the fucking school bus every day is the same way I feel about this. It's like, look,
Well,
if
yeah,
we're
but what
gonna like, and you understood each other. You're like, yo, we're sitting by each other every day on the fucking bus. Doesn't
guys,
matter.
this is where the podcast fell apart. I'm sorry. We got too emotional. No, so look, bro, I'm trying to explain to you right now. You and I are naturally of the same frequency, and that's why we're in the same vehicle,
I get it.
on the same school bus, eating at the same table, all that shit, right?
I get it. I'm just trying to explain why I feel the way that I feel. It's like, dope. We're gonna end up wherever we end up, regardless of if we're on the same page or eating
I'm
at the
telling
same
you,
table.
I love you so much. I give a fuck how you feel, cause I love you deeper than how you feel, bro.
Okay.
You could choose to fucking hate me. You could choose to love me, but that affects nothing of my choice.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Because I can only be who I am.
I'm the same. I feel the same way, but I also want to be on the same page.
Exactly. But you see, this is how we complicate things in the human world, and why you don't have to tell everybody about what's going on in here. You just got to live and say in it and carry it in here, and it translates.
I don't tell a lot of people about a lot of shit.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We didn't have to say it
Yeah.
because it was already understood. It was just, no, that's my boy. And you
Yeah.
knew it. Why? Because of how it fucking felt.
You already
And
know.
so it all comes back
I don't
in
talk
this
a lot.
circular way to the same shit. And that's why people can be like, fuck!
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You can't have enough V8s for that fucking shit, you know?
That's fucking awesome because V8 hasn't had a commercial in a long ass time, and you made that reference. That's awesome.
Hell yeah.
I love that.
Give me a second. My dog's spazzing out. I gotta make sure he's feeling your ripple in the frequency of time and space that doesn't have. Okay, come sit with me. There you go. That's my buddy.
Oh, it's Beans. The psycho pup himself.
See, this then flew off the handles this evening. What's up? See, he was just trying to tell us nothing even matters at all. Because I'm a little bean. Ow, my nut. Fuck.
Oh, little fucker. It doesn't really matter. In meditations, that's also another thing that Marcus Aurelius talks about is how things kind of don't really matter because we're here for a relatively short amount of time, and our memory is also here for a relatively short amount of time. So why not just live here in the now rather than in yesterday or tomorrow?
Well, see, this is why the purpose of coming is to awaken to what you are and hopefully to realize it.
Yeah.
Some people do it in one life, some people do it in many. Right? But you are what you are.
Your nature.
It's your seed. Right?
An apple tree.
And so what the beautiful thing is of this journey in life is to recognize it's almost like if you were an animal and you went to drink out of a pond and you saw yourself. Like your whole life you've just been going through the motions of, you know, this is my tribe, and judging who you are by the fact that we're all. This is actually something that I'll share at a later time to explain the depth of this, but it's like, I'm an elk, right?
Okay.
And I'm walking through the forest, and it's like, I'm looking at all the other elk and stuff, and knowing like, I am this because of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But inside, I don't really know. Then all of a sudden, you get to this watering hole, right? And you're drinking of the essence of life, right? What sustains you.
Yeah.
And in doing that, you realize that it was you that drew yourself to the essence that sustains you. And in that moment, you realize and get to see what you are by looking yourself in the face. And you recognize that it's almost one and the same. I'm a fragment of this. I'm not the water.
Yeah.
You know? But, and it's kind of a trippy equation, and I'm not sure if it's the best way to put it, but that's like what it's like when you realize you are like God. God is in you, but you are not God in entirety. You're an individual piece.
Yeah.
But you realize who you are. You realize your seed, your essence. And that's why when my mom asked me, what is the color of God as a child, right?
Yeah.
And then she said, God is the color of water because he reflects in it that which you see in him. And so you realize your purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you realize God within you at the same time where you find that intersection point. And so just observing yourself is such a beautiful thing until you realize who you really are, and then you're able to choose to be it. You're not just functioning by default.
Yeah. So like you're basically consciously choosing to be the thing that
You
want to be.
awaken consciously. My mom would stab me in the neck if this dog was barking as long as he has been without me going and seeing what's up, because I'm sure that's him just saying, "Look, I gotta go to the bathroom." So
Yeah.
I love you.
I love
My
you too,
eyes
bro.
have been hurting, but we thugged it out. We even thugged it out around some funky navigating of concepts. And I hope the viewers that stuck around know that you never have to do any of that shit if you just keep your mouth shut and just know it and just be it.
Yeah, just
And
do your own thing. Who cares if you're sitting at fucking two
if you
different
haven't
ends
fucking
of the table?
figured it out yet, detach and just fucking observe, okay?
Yeah.
And when it becomes apparent and you're like that elk and you see yourself,
Boom.
yo,
Deep shit.
now you're able to make these decisions consciously. You're not just doing this shit because.
All right, bro.
All
Go
right.
take care of that dog.
I love you.
Love you too,
Mr.
bro.
Beans is calling.
Later, guys.
I'll hit you tomorrow, bro.
For real.